Hi, my name is Katie Hurdle, and I'm one of the poultry sales reps for Trow Nutrition here in Atlantic Canada. I've worked in agriculture for over 20 years, and I'm excited to be able to join you on your small flock poultry adventures today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marissa Albright, and I am also a poultry sales rep for Atlantic Canada. I just recently joined the Trout Nutrition team and have worked in the agriculture industry for multiple years now, and I look forward to talking with you guys about your small flocks. Welcome to our presentation for the principles of raising your backyard poultry flocks. So to start, we'll start with just a few tips for brooding. So first of all, what is brooding? It is the management of chicks from 1 day old to about 8 weeks of age. Heat and light are very important during this period, and chicks need to be kept warm and dry and will need a heat source. Day-old chicks need temperatures between 31 and 35 degrees, and this temperature will slowly reduce as birds get older. It's important to note that turkeys will require heat for a longer period of time than turkeys. And also the duration for needing heat depends on the type of chicken you're also raising too. So broilers and layers differ. So to check your chick temperature, all you need to do is look at how your chicks are arranged with respect to the heat source. So if they are all huddled together, as you can see on the far left, this means that they are too cold. If they are very spread out from their heat, from the heat source, this means that they are too hot. And if they're well distributed underneath the heat lamp and they're not all clumped together or further spread apart, this indicates that the heat source is just right. So you can evaluate your lamp height with respect to the proximity of your chicks. So whether they're, like I said, huddled together or spread out, and you can raise or lower your lamp to influence the temperature based on what your chicks are telling you. And again, it's just important that you, for turkey chicks, they tend to like temperatures higher than chickens. And day-old turkeys will likely need temperatures closer to 35 degrees. So for feeding your young poultry, you want to ensure that they have free choice to chick starter and water. It is essential for young chicks. You also want to make sure that there's enough space for each bird to access these without competing with other birds. Starter feeds are formulated with higher protein levels to help young birds develop, as they don't eat as much as older birds. For bedding, it is important to keep your chicks' bedding clean and dry for maximum comfort and health. Bedding can come in several forms. A few common examples are wood shavings, straw, but regardless of whatever type of bedding you use, you need to ensure that it is absorbent, dry, and replaced if it becomes too wet. For ventilation and humidity, moisture and humidity can be a big enemy in the coop, and weather can also influence these and depend on whether you need to supply further ventilation. So most brooders with an open top or mesh wire top will have adequate ventilation without requiring any fans or an insertion of a ventilation system. So just a few quick tips for laying hens. It is best to provide them with cozy nest box with clean bedding, as this encourages them to lay eggs and keep them healthy. It is also necessary to provide hens with shelter from the elements. Another important aspect is to provide protection from predators. So you need to ensure that they have proper fencing and a latch control on coops. Another good idea is providing netting over the top of your coop to keep out any eagles or hawks. So for example, the netting that is used on cherry trees or blueberry bushes. You also want to keep an eye out for parasites, as mites can also take over a coop pretty quickly, especially if they are made out of wood. And you also want to remove eggs twice a day, especially at the start of the laying period. And you want to make sure that hens have a safe space to lay eggs. So again, a cozy nest box is a great idea for this. You also want to provide your hens or chickens, turkeys, with access to fresh water at all times. To ensure that it is fresh, you should look at it and say, would you drink that yourself? And if not, why wouldn't you? And if you wouldn't drink it, it probably isn't good for your birds. A complete feed in pellet form allows the bird consistent consumption of a diet with a blend of essential vitamins and minerals, instead of allowing them to pick out whichever types of grains are their favorites. Hen scratch is supposed to be fed as a treat, comprising of no more than 5% of the overall diet. Many backyard farmers will use more treats than complete feed, and this often results in poor shell quality and shorter layer life. Treats should be used as just treats, and a complete diet is necessary for the health and longevity of your birds. Here are just a few more tips about keeping your hens healthy. So oyster shells can be used to supplement additional calcium for eggshell quality and can be offered free choice. Grit also supports the mechanical digestion in the gizzard. And also lighting is very important. In the summer months, it is pretty easy and you likely won't need to supply any additional light sources. However, in the fall and winter, when the days are shorter, you may need to supply artificial light if you want year-round egg production. This is because hens require 16 hours of light for laying production and about 8 hours for roosting. So here are just a few more additional checks for when you pick up your chicks at the store. You want to make sure that you arrive on time, and if you cannot, make arrangements for someone to pick them up. And this is because when you pick up your day-old chicks, they have not yet been fed or watered, so you need to make sure that you get them home so they can get some feed and water into them. You can expect a 2% mortality, and it is best practice to raise layers and meat birds and turkeys in separate pens. You can brood day-old meat birds and layers together. However, once they get older than this, you should keep them separate for health reasons. Chick feeders and waterers come in various shapes and sizes, as you can see here on this slide. When you're making a selection of which feeders and waterers you want to use, you want to think about the ease of filling and cleaning these feeders and waterers. There is DIY options, as you can see on the lower right-hand corner of this slide. There are some PVC DIY feeders. However, some of these can be a bit difficult to clean. It is important to choose appropriate sizes for brooding chicks versus your larger birds. It is also important to consider how quickly your birds will empty them. So you may need to set up multiple feeders or waterers or ensure that they are large enough to hold enough feed and water for all of your birds.
So let's touch base on poultry nutrition. Feed generally comes in three formats: in a crumble, a mash, or a pellet. Crumbles are used in starters and growers as they're easier for young birds to ingest. Pellets allow for uniform consumption rates with less waste. Mash is kind of a loose ground form, and you might see bits of corn and other grains in it. Although feed comes in three textures, it's well known that layer hens will do better overall with a mash, but your hens are definitely going to waste less pellets. Medicated versus non-medicated starters. Our feeds and needs retail stores carry both of these items, and you have the option to choose. Medications such as amprolium or other compounds are used to aid in the prevention of coccidiosis. As the birds get older, they start to develop their own defenses against coccidia, but this is why these compounds are usually found in starter feeds. For your own knowledge, coccidiostats are class 4 antibiotics, and they're not generally used in human health, so the risk of antimicrobial resistance is not of a concern. So building on nutrition. Intake is important. Too little and your birds don't have enough of the building blocks for production. Too much, and this can lead to health issues such as fatty liver syndrome. Being kind to your hens by giving them extra feed needs to be done in moderation. Laying hens that eat more than 120 grams of birds per day in normal weather are likely overweight. Shelf life on feed can generally last from 4 to 6 months if stored in a cool, dry environment away from pests such as rodents and insects. The trick is picking the right diet for the right age. As birds age, their requirements for nutrients change. Different diets are then used to match those requirements, remembering that their intakes change over time as well. Following our poultry feeding program on the next slides, and pamphlets are available through our feeds and needs stores as well. We'll help you pick the right diet based on the age and species of your flock. Starting with meat birds, we feed a medicated or a plain chick starter for the first 4 weeks. We feed a grow finisher, either medicated or plain, from 4 weeks to market. I would like to encourage you to book your kill dates as soon as possible, unless you're processing your birds yourself. A good rule of thumb is whenever you place your order for your birds at the feed store, is to book your kill dates as well. Our homestead feed line has been a staple in the backyard flock world for many years. It's 100% vegetable and contains no meat or feather meal. It fits the criteria for free range licensing, but it does not meet the organic market. Meat birds need a period of 8 to 14 hours of darkness, especially as they get closer to slaughter, or they will overeat, and this leads to flips. Flips are cardiac arrhythmias, so it's essentially a heart attack of an overweight bird. You also need to make sure that you remove your feed 12 hours prior to slaughter to avoid contamination and condemned birds at processing time. Layer birds. We feed chick starter a bit longer with these guys, so up to 9 weeks that you can feed your medicated or plain starter. You're going to feed a grower finisher from 9 to 18 weeks, which is about the time they should start to lay. Beyond 18 weeks, we will feed your choice of layer ration. It is not advisable to feed layer feed too early because too much calcium too soon can shorten your bird's lifespan. Generally, your hens will lay 1 egg per day if given proper nutrition, lighting, and clean water, and they'll lay very well for about 72 weeks. After that, production will drop off, sometimes significantly, especially in commercial breed hens. Turkeys. We feed turkey starter plain from 0 to 6 weeks and turkey grow finisher plain from 6 weeks to market. Now that all turkey feeds are unmedicated, producers should be vigilant about their biosecurity and keep an eye out for a disease known as blackhead. Blackhead is called by a protozoa, which is a single-celled organism, and can have an 80% to 100% mortality rate in turkeys. It's spread by common roundworms. Because chickens, pheasants, partridges can shed protozoa, it's important to house your turkeys separately. Our feeds and needs stores generally sell turkey pullets that are a bit older, usually 2 to 4 weeks of age. And this is to help deter the large mortality rates that sometimes happens with day-old birds. Keep in mind that they will still need heat even though they're a bit older. Let's talk a little bit about feed and how we choose our raw materials. Birds need a combination of nutrients such as energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals. Cereals such as corn and wheat are good at providing energy, but are low in protein. Soybean meal and canola meal are all good sources of protein, but don't have a lot of energy. Limestone is a good source of calcium. Our feed mill carefully weighs out and mixes the combinations of the ingredients that match the bird's needs for that age and stage of production. There are many reasons people might want to try to mix their own feed, similar to people wanting to create their own dog food with natural ingredients. There's extensive science and nutrition education that goes into creating commercial feeds that are safe, efficient, and cost effective, keeping in mind animal welfare. If you choose to go the route of mixing your own feed, please choose ingredients that are feed grade to ensure the health and welfare of your flock. Our feeds and needs staff or either of us poultry sales representatives can help you in that decision-making process. Vaccinations and medications. I often get this question, are the birds that I purchase at my feeds and needs store vaccinated? The answer is yes. All certified hatchery birds in Canada are vaccinated for Marek's disease. Marek's is a highly contagious herpes virus that causes paralysis and skin lesions. Medicated feeds, again, contain Amprol to combat coccidiosis. Coccidiosis is a parasitic disease of the intestinal tract and causes diarrhea and dehydration. Again, Amprol is a class 4 antibiotic, it's an ionophore, and it's not used in human health. Not all feeds are medicated. You have the option to choose either one. I personally recommend medicated starter to customers to help prevent the heartbreak and cost of a coccidiosis outbreak. Let's talk about medications and labels for a minute. A product labeled with indications for chickens is not intended for layer birds, and therefore egg withdrawal times may be unknown. Products purchased outside of Canada may not be labeled for use here, and therefore egg and meat withdrawal times may vary. Deworming, best practice is to have a fecal sample analyzed and proceed with veterinary advice. When in doubt, check with your local veterinarian. On those labels, chickens are meat birds, and that indicates simply that no studies were done on layer birds, not that the information is not available. Your veterinarian is the only person qualified to make a recommendation on any off-label medication use. A bit about biosecurity in small flocks. Keep it simple, limit visitor access to your birds, keep new birds separate for 30 days to prevent any disease transfer. Unvaccinated birds entering your flock may pose a threat. So that 30-day quarantine is pretty important. Regularly wash and disinfect your coop and your equipment. Keep in mind, fly and rodent control is always a challenge. Some fly and rodent control products are only available with a pesticide license. However, our stores do have access to a variety of domestic labeled effective products. Cleaning and disinfecting. It's important to use soap when we wash our equipment and our coop. So wash your feeders and waterers regularly. Wash your coop in between flocks. Acidic detergents are used in presence of mineral biofilms, and that's that hard water situation. So the rust stain in your bathtub is a good indication of having hard water. Alkaline detergents are used in presence of organic biofilms and are generally labeled as degreasers. So they do an excellent job of lifting the dirt off the surfaces. A quick note on disinfectants. Choose a disinfectant that's safe and effective. Virkon is an excellent choice for small flocks. It's pre-measured and has a long list of pathogens that it is effective against. Bleach does not work well in presence of organics. Barns and coops are the definition of organic matter. If you choose to use vinegar as a disinfectant, keep in mind that white table vinegar is 5% acetic acid. Don't water it down. 5% acetic acid is very effective and kills lots of pathogens. Just do not water it down. If you're using horticultural vinegar, that's usually a 20%. Feel free to water that down to a 5% ratio. Also, please never mix soaps and disinfectants together. Never mix any type of disinfectant together, as they can form dangerous gases such as chlorine gas. We look forward to answering your questions on our upcoming Q&A. And this is our contact information for both Marissa and I, and please feel free to reach out to either of us. Thank you.